Welcome to Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in our Capitol Bureau today in Sacramento, and we are joined by Chris McKenzie. He is the Executive Director of the League of California Cities. And I want to take us back about a year and talk about a decision that came out of a California Court of Appeal, and it dealt with the way one particular city, in this case San Juan Capistrano in Orange County, tiered its water rate structure. Could you explain for us what that decision, the basis of the underlying facts of that case, actually?
Sure, happy to. The underlying facts are that the city, in this case, adopted a rate structure that charged higher amounts as you increased the consumption of your water. So they established some rate groups or tiers. So in the highest group, you would be charged more than in the basic water group. The basic tier would be for, bathing and for basic lawn watering, those kinds of things. And it was to create an incentive to conserve water that the city did it.
It seems like a lofty goal, especially given the drought that we have been facing. Yes, we do have an El Nino this year, but you know better than I, we need 3 El Ninos and maybe we'll catch up.
Right, well, in the southern part of our state, they haven't benefited yet from the El Nino.
And so ultimately, what did the court rule? I know they were looking at a proposition, Prop 218, that passed in the 90s. Right. What did they rule?
Well, it was a ruling that was based on a very technical part of 218 that has to do with how the property benefited from the actual rates that were imposed and the water that would flow from that. And the court basically said, you can do this, but you have to prove that when you're charging more for the higher tier, that's going to provide a direct benefit back to that property. Now, in an agency or a district that is going out to acquire new supplies, that's much easier than if you have one supply. And so while the court said technically you can keep doing this, as a practical matter, it made it much more difficult.
And I got to say, the governor was apoplectic about this. He called the ruling a straitjacket. He was really hopping mad. So there have been questions about whether we need to look at, would it be reforming Prop 218? Do we need to go back to the voters? Or is there a legislative solution? Or do we just pass another initiative? What do we do, sir, in this case?
Well, the League of California Cities, the organization I work for, in partnership with the counties and the water agencies and a number of other groups, including environmental groups, have been pondering this. While we've also been working on how do we put stormwater to use in building greater water supplies, increasing our water supplies, diversification of our waters. And our research indicated the best way to address both of those problems would be through a new constitutional amendment that provided an alternative way for local governments to finance these important kinds of improvements and to be able to save water better. Let me give you a fact that's really relevant to saving water. The UC Riverside has completed a study not long ago that said if you can use conservation water rates, you can save on average 18% of your water usage. Now, what that allows local agencies to do when you save water, just like when you save energy, you're able to reduce the need to expand capacity. And so that's going to save the ratepayers a lot of money.
So specifically, the proposed initiative would, I guess, circumvent the San Juan Capistrano decision. It's basically saying, and that's allowed. I mean, in our system of justice, legislatures can go back and look at court decisions and try to change them through law.
It gives an imprimatur of validity to conservation rates, as well as other kinds of local infrastructure projects for stormwater and for controlling floods, which is virtually identical to the existing law.
I want to focus, though, on the conservation rates. Because, look, we have seen over the last year or so that Californians have really chipped in, and we have been conserving a very significant amount of water. The governor's proposal of trying to conserve 25%, I mean, we've hit it or been near hitting that goal every single month. But there's a downside to that. When we conserve water, these water agencies take in less revenue. but their costs are still fixed. And
Right.
so they are facing challenges, and they therefore are having to increase rates, even though we're using less water, because they still have their fixed costs. So how does the establishment of conservation-based water rates play into that double-edged sword?
Well, what it's going to do is allow us to maintain a more steady level of revenue without having to increase rates and avoid. Well, because those people and businesses that are consuming more will actually pay more.
Right, I understand. So you're getting
Instead
more
of
at the top.
charging
Right,
them
right.
the same flat amount as we do somebody who is conserving, we're going to be able to recover additional revenue, creating a market incentive for them to conserve more and help us avoid future development costs.
But it will be incumbent upon these local water agencies to make sure they get their math right.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
this initiative does not dictate how the conservation rates will be set up. It's giving them the latitude. So
That's
if
right.
what you
That's
describe
right.
is accurate, and I presume mathematicians will figure it out,
Right.
that you can make it work so it's not hurting the bottom line. But like you said right now, because they can't increase rates for higher usage,
Yes.
under Juan Capistrano, it presents serious
And
challenges.
throughout the state, we've seen instances of people continuing to waste water.
Right.
Whereas if we could give them a market signal, hopefully they would not waste as much
So
water.
let's talk then about the other parts of the program, or the initiative, I should say, and that's allowing local agencies to finance stormwater capture and flood control infrastructure. What's the reason for the linkage of these two elements?
Well, stormwater and flood control obviously go together, but also the water conservation.
Yeah.
They all have to do with water. And actually, at the end of the day, water supply needs can be met by better managing our stormwater runoff
Right.
and better managing our floodwaters. When we manage our floodwaters better and our
Right.
stormwater better, we reduce property damage as well. So if we can better manage our stormwater, we can use it to recharge aquifers,
Right.
which provide water supply
Sure.
for us, and avoid building new water supplies in the process as well.
How does this play into Prop 1, which was the water bond that passed?
Well, the Prop 1 had some money in it, a few $100 million, important funding, but not nearly enough
Right.
to manage stormwater. And it's related to that as well, a very good point, because if you need local money to match getting a share of the state bond money, most local agencies don't have the money, most cities and counties don't, to match the state funding. So this would give them a source of funding to match the state funding to leverage getting some of that state bond money back.
And the final element, you're looking to create a lifeline program?
Yeah, you know, we talk a lot in our state about housing affordability, but one of the real problems poorer people have in staying in housing and paying their bills is being able to pay their utility bills.
How frustrating is that?
Today we have assistance programs for them through our electric and gas utilities, but water utilities and cities can't use water rates to assist low-income people. The law currently prohibits that unless we take it out of tax revenues. This would allow user fees to be able to be used to provide some partial subsidy to low-income people. We know when we've seen the terrible crisis in Flint, Michigan, how important quality water is, and clean water and an adequate supply of water is for all of us. It really is a right, and this allows local agencies to help people meet their water needs.
So it would be the option of the local agency whether to adopt the Lifeline program. It's not a mandate.
Not a mandate. None of this is a mandate. It is completely optional.
Interesting.
A complete alternative to current law. If agencies want to keep using the existing law, they can use it.
He is Chris McKenzie. He is the executive director of the League of California Cities. My name is Brad Pomerance in the Sacramento Bureau. This is Local Edition.